there are moments in television where people get on TV and people are sort of like, wait, what's this guy doing here? Maybe we shouldn't be pushing this.
Into it. So there's a professor at NYU by the name of Scott Galloway, and he's been making the rounds on CNN and MSNBC, and he's been sounding the alarm. He's given us a dire warning.
This is one of my favorite clips of the last couple of days. Scott Galloway, former guest on this program, whose podcast I listen to, he's a super wealthy entrepreneur investor type, NYU business school professor, and he went on MSNBC. He's in the lower right of this shot that I have up on the screen. Scott Galloway went on MSNBC and said to a stunned doofusy panel,
once you get above a certain level of wealth, you get no incremental happiness. So why on earth would you not go back to a tax policy of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, where say above, pick a big number, 10 million, you actually pay more than 10%, maybe more than 20%, maybe more than 50%, because the difference between 30,000 a year for a household and 50,000 is enormous to the well-being of that household. Low-income kids in low-income households have higher resting blood pressure, but the difference between making 10 million a year and 15 million a year offers you no happiness. But these individuals have weaponized government, and we risk revolution, whether it's CEOs being murdered in the street, whether it's a Me Too movement that had righteous components of it, or Black Lives Matter. What are these movements? They are targeting the wealthy. We are in the midst of a series of small revolutions to correct income inequality. And the reason we put an insurrectionist and a rapist in office is because for the first time in our nation's history, a 30-year-old man or woman isn't doing as well as his or her parents were at 30. Why? Because the majority of households are having the oxygen sucked out of the room, such that a small number of individuals and a small number of companies can be worth more than nation states. Income inequality is out of control. Our tax policy has gone full oligarch.
That room is not ready for those kinds of truth bombs. That room is not prepared for that, because these are all, good little loyal servants to the establishment and to the donor class. That's exactly who's in that room right now. So you could tell they're a little bit like, whoa, dog, what the hell? We were not expecting all that.
What he's touching on here is very important. Everything we are seeing right now, political instability, social unrest, increasing radicalization, and fascism, isn't happening for no reason. It's happening because we've reached the final stage of capitalism, and literally every aspect of human life has now become commodified. Americans and workers around the world really have been squeezed for every penny at the behest of the ruling class, and common distractions that once kept us all in line are no longer sufficient because things are just that bad.
Now, look. He's a little bit more polite. Like, I don't care if it really makes you a little marginally more happy to be a multi-billionaire or millionaire. I still don't think it's effective for society. I don't think it's like, putting aside like any type of morality associated with it. It's just, like he says, this is a math problem.
Yeah, it's inefficient.
And the math problem is, this is unsustainable. You cannot have a small group of corporations and individuals hoarding all the money in society. You can't have it and have society function.
Hey, U.S. tax policy is oligarchic. We need to raise taxes dramatically for the super rich. Will he ever be allowed back on MSNBC? I don't know.
It's hard to distract us when daily life at this point in time makes a lot of us miserable. People don't have healthcare, and if they do, it's too expensive. They can't retire. They can't buy houses. They live paycheck to paycheck. People are desperate, and that desperation is growing. And the main avenue that regular working class people once had to address these grievances, which was through politics, has been hijacked by the wealthiest people in the country. A 2014 Princeton University study found that average citizens have a statistically insignificant impact on policy outcomes, whereas economic elites and wealthy interest groups are the only ones who see the policies that they want enacted into law. Take this 2024 Data for Progress survey, for example. As you can see, the majority of Americans support pretty progressive policies, an expansion of Social Security, as well as rent caps, a $17 an hour minimum wage, Medicare for all, free college, among other things. And a healthy republic would understand that things are bad and the population wants that, and they would respond by enacting those policies, delivering these things that will help people to their constituents. But if politicians were to do that, then their wealthy donors wouldn't be too happy, since those policies all would inhibit their ability to squeeze even more money out of us. Elites don't want to expand Social Security because they want to privatize it and profit off of it. Corporations don't want to increase minimum wage or wages at all. They want to lay off as many workers as possible and replace all of the remaining ones with robots as quickly as they can. Healthcare can't be free, otherwise an entire industry would go the way of the dodo. To put it simply, life can't be better for the rest of us because rich people want to make more money and profit off of our suffering. And even though it feels like the system is broken, it's not. It's working as intended.
Yeah, we have a very progressive tax system until you get to about the 99th percent. And essentially the people who get most damaged by our current tax code, it's lower and middle income households, their taxes have gone up slightly because of consumption, but not because of federal. The people that really get hurt are what I call the workhorses. And that are people who make an exceptionally good living, but it's all current income. and they live in a blue state, they might be paying 50 to 54% tax rate. I bet some of those people are on around this table right now. But if you can make the jump to light speed and invest in assets, stocks, housing, then your tax rate plummets. So in America, we've decided to try and create a super class of billionaires. And then if they win the gold medal, we're going to give them the silver and the bronze. Two biggest tax deductions, capital gains and mortgage interest. Who owns homes and stocks? People my age. Who doesn't know? Who rents and makes their money from current income? Young people. So we've decided that the wealthiest people in the world should get exceptionally more wealthy. Minimum wage stuck at $9.25. Stock market is screamed up. The average 70-year-old is 72% wealthier than they were 40 years ago. The average person under the age of 40 is 24% less wealthy. We are purposely transferring more wealth from the poor and middle class to the upper class to the super rich, and from young to old.